Welcome to Films and Stuff with your hosts, Pete Mitchell and Ethan Hunt.
All right, Pete, welcome back. How are you doing today?
All good, Ethan. And yourself?
Everything is great. Tell me what we've got in store today, and do we have to give a spoilers alert warning?
Yes. Let's do it this way. We're talking about Moonfall.
Okay.
Roland Emmerich's latest disaster extravaganza.
It is a disaster extravaganza. Just released. Halle Berry, Patrick Wilson, John Bradley, who we've last seen in Defending the Wall in Game of Thrones, right?
Ugh, yeah. Sorry, I don't want to spoil it.
I'm not sure. Do you want to give your rating? Do you want to give your rating up front, or should we just guess from the inflection in your voice?
Yeah, what do you think? Ugh.
Let me just say that when I saw this movie coming out, I was extremely excited. I thought this was a great idea for a movie, and I thought that the title was brilliant. Moonfall, it's exactly what it's going to be. Sounds exciting. It's got space involved in it. The movie, the poster looks super cool. I was actually quite excited about this. I thought this was going to be some type of Armageddon, Bruce Willis, Ben Affleck, Aerosmith pumping out a love ballad. I was maybe going to cry at the end. I was all in for this. And then the narrator in the background says, and then he saw the movie.
Yeah, indeed. I have always been a fan of disaster movies, no matter how ridiculous they are. Because they're, at the end of the day, they're all entertaining to watch. They're easy to put on in the background. There's, usually pretty good visual effects, good sound effects, and premises are so silly and so weird and so dumb that you can't help but think, okay, that was good. Or, that stunt was excellent, blah, blah, blah. But this
Armageddon, classic. How can you...
Great.
Armageddon's just classic, right?
Superb in the sense that, on paper, the premise is equally silly, right? You've got a Texas-sized meteor flying into the path of Earth's orbit. We need to do something to get it out of the way. What do we do?
Billy Bob Thornton, the head of NASA.
Yeah.
I mean, wonderful. I thought this was an amazing movie. So everything, maybe our expectations have been destroyed by Armageddon. Maybe that movie was so good, it hit on everything that no other disaster movie where it's, what was it, San Andreas, right? About with the rock.
Yeah.
Greenland with Gerard Butler. 2012
with John Cusack, was it?
Maybe. What else is there?
I think it was John Cusack. It might have been Nicolas Cage, but for some reason I think it's John Cusack.
Who else? If it was Nicolas Cage, you'd definitely know you've got Nicolas Cage movies, filmography committed to memory. It was not Nicolas Cage.
But that's a twofer there. What else? So these disaster era movies, right?
Yes.
Or not disaster era, disaster style movies.
Yes.
To a limited extent, even what's his face, Independence Day. Right?
Yes.
Where you have aliens invading Earth.
Of course.
Right? So,
so Moonfall started with big shoes to fill, and to be honest, I thought the premise was, they don't really tell you a lot in the trailer, but I thought this was pretty solid. Halle Berry, Patrick Wilson, not bad to start with, right? And it went sideways almost from the beginning, huh?
Yeah,
so
it did.
Maybe I should start off by saying, in a moment of supreme confusion, I actually started watching the wrong movie. There's also a movie out. Just remember when there was Armageddon, there was a competing movie about something similar. What was it called?
Deep Impact. Deep
Impact, right? And these two happened at the same time, just like there was once White House Down and...
Olympus Has Fallen.
Olympus Has Fallen, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So at the same time there's a Moonfall, there's also a movie out there called Moon Crash. So I just typed in...
very similar premise.
Yes! I just typed in Moon, and it came up Crash, and I didn't even think about it, or I thought maybe I got it wrong, and I started watching that, and there was no Halle Berry. And I was really confused. I was like, where's Halle Berry? Like, when's she going to appear? Like, I thought she's the main character, like... There's no Halle Berry. I'm like, wow, this movie is really terrible. And it is really terrible. So let me just summarize Moon Crash for...
Oh, did you actually finish it?
I did not finish it, but I got pretty close to the end. Until I just kind of realized something is dramatically wrong. There's still no Halle Berry in this movie. So Moon Crash actually has a little bit better premise, which is we are now mining on the moon. So this has a little bit of For All Mankind in it, right? So we're mining on the moon, and there is some type of, let's say, underground like explosion or something, and a large piece of the moon breaks off, and it's hurtling towards the Earth. And then, of course, NASA...
I gotta say, based on that alone, I prefer Moon Crash.
You say that now, it is... with all my respect to a lot of good people who have probably been involved in that movie, it is terribly cast, terribly written, terribly filmed. It is really a disaster, not including the disaster that's the piece of the moon falling off. I have to say, though, the space scenes, like where they show like the equipment on the moon or the mining operations, were actually pretty decent. Like they actually looked very good. I don't know how they did it, but it didn't seem to be CGI, but they looked actually kind of what I would imagine a mining operation and the vehicles would look like. I give them a lot of credit. But the rest of the movie is really terrible. So then I realized I'm watching the wrong movie, switched to Moonfall, and I'm not sure if I like punishment or not, because then I watched a second moon disaster movie, which is actually not much better than the first one.
Yeah, Moonfall had I had a lot of problems with it. I think on paper, if they had stopped at the premise that the moon is falling onto Earth, I would. That's it. Just the premise on its own. Yeah, that's fine. This is great. They went one step too far. I think it was a bridge too far. Way too far. Which is, for the two of you who might contemplate watching this, spoiler alert.
It's not for the people who are going to watch it. It's for those who will not watch it. That we're providing a public service. This is a public service. This is a pro bono episode of Films and Stuff.
Yeah. This was... so the whole point is that we learn that the moon's orbit is indeed decaying.
Yes.
And it does look like the moon is going to come crashing into Earth.
Yes.
Good so far. No problems there so far. But the reason...
Relatively speaking.
Right. The reason the moon is going to fall onto Earth is because... Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Aliens.
Not even aliens. A past generation of humanity... that's been wiped out by their own AI, has created the moon as a megastructure so that they can save this new iteration of humanity. I think that's about as concisely and accurately as I can say it. That being said, I have to say, all my problems with this movie, which are many.
Numerous.
I had to say that's a little bit of an interesting premise that you and I have not seen in any other movie. To the extent that we needed something new, I have to say that was not bad.
Yeah, but I think this is a step. This is one of those instances where they may have done too much. Which is to say, look, if you're talking about a disaster movie, again, as I stated, I like disaster movies just because they're usually fun to have on.
Yeah.
The concept of the moon falling onto the Earth, already good enough. You don't then require... You're not you don't need a second element to that, which is to say that the moon itself is an artificial construct, and that in it is the moon houses good AI that is there, that was sent to this solar system billions of years ago, or millions of years ago, or whatever years ago, to seed our planet with life and to keep it alive while there is a rogue AI battle going on, which eons ago had destroyed humanity. And so the Earth as we know it today is a restart of that process.
So basically you're saying they took two different movies, one about the moon falling, one about a AI humanity race, and they combined these two
Unnecessarily.
And instead of budgeting for two bad movies, they slashed the budget in half and made both bad movies together.
In one, exactly. They went too far. It's unnecessary. The premise was already good enough.
Don't take it personal.
Again,
Pete, don't take it personal.
I am, because it's 2 hours of my life I'm never getting back. And again, I caveat all of this by saying this is a relative discussion, not in terms of compared to other great movies. I'm just saying in comparison to other disaster movies, right? Whether it's a fault line that's threatening to break off California from the United States in San Andreas or whatever it was, or, you have an alien species invading.
There's something called Geostorm. There's also like
Geostorm was there too. That's right. That was also another terrible movie, but fine. Those premises are very simple, which is to say some natural disaster is occurring. Mm-hmm. Okay, of course, alien invasions don't count as national disaster, but fine. That's a separate thing. But you have some
force
kind
majeure.
of natural
It's
disaster.
Force majeure.
Force majeure. That's a great way of saying it, right? So there is some kind of act of God happening. How do we defy that act of God? Right? Yes. How do we stop it? How do we prevent it? That's enough.
Usually there's one British actor who can solve it himself while saving his son or daughter.
Yeah, and that British actor is somehow shunned by the community at large for whatever reason. Right?
Usually because they have a drinking problem.
Usually, well, yeah, Independence Day. That's exactly right.
And I think that was anything with Gerard Butler, right? Greenland. Well,
in Greenland, he was shunned because he was having an affair.
Oh, no alcohol.
Yeah, although I'm sure alcohol played a part of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, in any case, they mashed up two different things, and it didn't necessarily work in its favor. I think if they had made two separate movies about it, I think that would have been fine. I think they could have kicked that kid off, that Game of Thrones not Samuel Tarly.
Oh,
it was Sam.
John Bradley.
Yeah, John Bradley. He added. I think his role was to be the comedic sidekick.
He was the comedic sidekick.
Right? He was the guy that everyone looks to for all the funny moments, but they just didn't land to me because they're like, "Oh, look at me. I'm a chubby guy with IBS. Oh, look at me. I'm a chubby guy with vertigo. Oh, look at me. I'm a chubby guy who doesn't know what he's doing." Like, I'm sorry. Like, it's the same joke every time, and it was just, okay, enough. Right? It's just, I didn't need to see that. So,
Pete, I feel like your rating for this movie is skip it. I feel like that's your rating.
Yes,
for this movie.
Absolutely skip it.
I agree.
I wouldn't even bother watching it if it were free on TV in the background. Yeah. I'd switch the channel.
But how could we fix this movie? I mean, I think it's clear. If anyone who's listening to us isn't clear on our recommendation, our mutual recommendation is skip this movie. Unless you really just kind of want to laugh at something, to be honest. It's
even then,
terrible.
I mean, please do not spend money on this.
Yeah. And I'm sorry to Halle Berry a little bit. I'm sorry to Patrick Wilson a little bit. I'm sorry to John Bradley, who I think...
independently great actors, don't get me wrong. Maybe not good at least. And
but they got
whether
no
you like them
material
or
to
love
work
them.
with.
Yeah, they do the best they can with what they have. I've always been a fan of Halle Berry for at least the last 2 decades. It's a shame that this was a movie she was really touting, but this is not a feather in her cap by any means.
No. So how would you fix this? Because I think this movie could be fixed under the right circumstances. It's not irredeemable. I mean, this movie's irredeemable, but if you had to say like, okay, guys, let's remake this thing. It's obviously,
let's start back in the writer's room, right?
Yeah, it's tested pretty poorly. Let's try to fix this thing up. What would we do?
Oh, I'd start 6 months before that process or a year before that process. I'd start in the writer's room. I wouldn't even wait for like minor changes. I think the first major change is you get rid of the alien concept or you get rid of the moon falling concept. One or the other.
I think we get rid of the Moonfall. And I only say that because
interesting. Okay.
We've seen so many, as we mentioned, disaster movies. Definitely this is a new spin on it, but I'm a little bit exhausted of seeing the top of the Empire State Building breaking off and swirling all around. I'm tired of seeing these tornadoes of boats and cars and stuff. Like, I think you and I have seen enough of these movies that's not really moving the needle. And it's going to be the same formula. There's kind of a love story, or there's a kid that's trying to be reunited with, and there's a bunch of stuff swirling around. I mean, I like the idea of the Moonfall. It's super clever, to be honest. But that should have been made 10 years ago instead of Cloverfield or Greenland or 2012 or Geostorm or San Andreas or Armageddon or something else, Deep Impact. That's past. So I think that even though it's a good idea to say Moonfall, like I think it's too late for that. So I think they should focus on the AI alien stuff. And that also at least gives you the opportunity that you can create something, let's say, Matrix-like, and make a sequel, a prequel. You've got at least more original material to work with. But I think the idea needs to be fleshed out a little bit more.
I think...
What's your counterpoint?
I think you've raised a good point, which is to say that either which way you look at it, whether it's just the Moonfall aspect or just the robotic rogue AI aspect, this is not treading anything new. Yeah. Right? In terms of Moonfall, instead of the moon, it's an asteroid, but this is almost the equivalent of Armageddon, right? Yeah. Or Deep Impact or any other, natural disaster movie. Which is to say, some natural disaster, how do we avoid it? Right down
to the fact that John Bradley, whatever his guy's name is, in this movie, right, is the not the reluctant hero, the voluntary hero, right? Who stays behind and says, I'm going to sacrifice myself for all of humanity, right?
Right.
The Bruce Willis role and whoever else did the same thing in Deep Impact, right?
Exactly. So that's on one side, and on the other side, the rogue AI story, that's also been done, right? We've seen that with to a limited extent with Terminator with The Matrix, where you've got and countless other sci-fi movies, which is to say, what happens?
Battlestar Galactica.
That's right. Anytime humanity creates artificial intelligence. Within moments of its being switched on, for whatever reason, artificial intelligence goes full on evil or Cylon and decides that it needs to exterminate humanity to save itself.
I think we can also say when this really happens in real life, no one can say, I never saw this coming. I think as a society, we should all be able to say, like, yeah, we probably knew this was going to happen, right?
Yeah, which is...
After 20 years of Terminator, it probably can't be a surprise that our AI turns on us.
Yeah. What was the movie with Will Smith? I, Robot. That was another one.
Yeah.
So it's not... Either way you cut it, either half of this movie concept, you are treading familiar water, right? So the question then becomes, for me, as a filmmaker... What is something that I think people are more likely going to want to watch? And between the two of them, I think I'm more keen on the idea of the moon falling onto the Earth than I am on the moon staying in orbit, but housing a race of artificial intelligence that that's trying to kill us.
Well, I wish you good luck making that movie. I'll be making my AI the moon is a mega structure that's housing all this other
Here's
crazy
the crazy
stuff.
thing. Here's the crazy thing. You could call your movie Moon Crash because the system has crashed. And I could still call my movie Moonfall. And we could still release it at the same time in the cinema.
I think your movie should be called Eclipse.
Ooh, Eclipse is nice too.
Right? I think it's Eclipse. And mine should be, I don't know, something.
I don't even know. Resurgence, rebirth. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. I wasn't, this movie...
Super disappointing. It's super
disappointing given...
Do you think this is a low-budget movie? What is the budget of this movie? Because the cast is, apart from Halle Berry and Patrick Wilson, and again, we love Halle Berry. Halle Berry's not in her prime Catwoman, A-list Hollywood. She is a big name, but she hasn't been in a lot of big stuff recently. I mean, she's 50-some-odd years old. Patrick Wilson, super actor in very limited supporting roles. He's never carried a movie, right? John Bradley, so beloved in Game of Thrones, I don't think has ever had a kind of crossover role, right? So is this a low budget movie that they said, hey, let's just
guess how much money they spent on it? It's gonna blow you away.
$50 million.
$150 million.
No way! $150 million for this movie
without marketing. Which I mean, jeez, Louis, it's a lot.
Was there a lot of CGI? Where?
So, well, look.
It must be all these it must be all these.
There's plenty of CGI.
Yeah.
There was plenty of CGI, and to its credit, it looked pretty good. Right?
It did
the
look
scenes
good.
Of the moon were pretty excellent. The rogue artificial intelligence, not that great, but then the superstructure or the mega structure of the moon, it looked pretty swish inside. You had the spaceships, you had all that. It wasn't too bad.
It wasn't too bad. And then, that's crazy amount of money to spend on
but that is a lot of money to spend on a script this week, right? Or on a movie concept this week. Yeah. And I think a lot of it was just greenlit because it's Roland Emmerich, and everyone's like, well, he made a success out of...
what else has he made that I know?
Independence Day.
Oh.
Stargate. The Patriot. Godzilla. And then, he did White House Down. He's known for... he's known for his... disaster movies, right? I think he did. Let me look it up here. Yeah, so he did Stargate, Independence Day, Godzilla, The Day After Tomorrow. I think that's the.
Oh yeah.
That's the.
I don't know what that is, but I know The Day After Tomorrow.
Yeah, so he's done a bunch of these movies. He did 2012 as well. Like half the movies we talked about actually are done by him.
I mean, that's really disappointing, though, actually, because it's like he's trying to catch the same lightning in a bottle. If he did 2012, there's no reason to do this as well.
I agree. I agree. I think in terms of that, you are, you're mining the same source for this kind of material.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I don't want to say he's typecast himself, but it kind of has, right? Which is to say, really big budget disaster films that aren't going to make that much money for you. So I don't know. I think that this was not.
So this was kind of like, I agree. It was not a very good effort, and it was kind of like almost a remake of something. I mean, you could kind of see like this was a reboot of
Moon Crash.
Yeah. But I mean, of any of these disaster movies that you just mentioned, right? And I think that's the point that I want to explore more with you, which is what movie have we seen that we really like and we either want to see it rebooted or we're a little bit surprised that it hasn't been remade, right? Because there's so many good movies out there that we are so passionate about it. It's like, wow, why haven't they remade that? Because they remake so much stuff that sometimes it's a little bit rubbish, right?
I think that let's look at some of the. So okay, I can think of a few. I think one of them is Looper.
Oh, Looper.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Bruce Willis.
Yes.
Conceptually, I thought that was great.
Yes, that could use a sequel. To be honest, right?
Ish. I mean, conceptually good, but I think, Bruce Willis, I mean, bless his cotton socks, he has kind of stopped really caring about acting, and most of the stuff he does is paycheck to, like, just a paycheck. Right? I can't think of the last movie that he did that I think he really sunk his teeth into and was really a fan of. So that conceptually I thought was a good movie, but that maybe not the best. Conceptually was good, but the movie itself wasn't that great.
I mean, if you're going to say Looper, then I'm going to say Jumper, which is Hayden Christensen from Star Wars, Samuel L. Jackson, also from Star Wars.
Yeah.
And I thought there was also someone else in there. Diane Lane was in there.
Yeah, his mother.
Yes, his mother.
Yeah.
I thought that as an idea, I thought that Jumper was super cool, and I thought that was actually a pretty decent movie. I would not have minded that either being, I don't know if it needs to be remade, but I wouldn't mind that being, have a sequel to that. Or a prequel.
Yeah, I think...
Kristen Stewart was in there. Wow, this is a decent cast.
Oh, yeah, I think she was the love interest.
Yes. Rachel Bilson. That's a very solid cast.
It was a pretty stacked cast, but remember, this came out, if I remember correctly, this came out while he was Anakin?
Yeah, this is 2008.
Yeah, so I think this was just
Hayden Christensen was kind of in his
so-called Star Wars prime. Let's put it that way.
He was in the Star Wars prime.
And I think that most people, whether he's good or bad is a different discussion, but I think most people gave him a lot of flack for his portrayal of Anakin Skywalker in the Star Wars universe. And I think that carried over to his other roles.
Yeah.
Right. And when I think of dynamic actors, young actors, I don't think of Hayden Christensen.
No.
In that time, I would have thought of Ewan McGregor.
Yeah. Although Ewan McGregor has laid low a while, but I mean, his acting chops, I think, are not questioned, right?
And more than that, forget about just the acting chops. He's a charming guy. Like, if you see him on interviews, if you see him on shows, very charming. His charisma is off the charts. Whereas Hayden Christensen, not so much, right?
He's a little bit more reserved.
A little bit more reserved. So I think that gives, automatically gives you a little bit more leeway to get away with stuff if you're also a charming guy. If you've got some good movies, if you've got some bad roles, it doesn't matter so much. You get away with it because you're a good guy and everyone likes you.
Yeah. What's another good movie that you want to see either remade or have like a sequel or a prequel?
Are you ready for this? This is a deep cut.
I am ready. Is this a hot take?
Not a hot take, I don't think. Or maybe it is. I don't know. Oh, actually, I have two. One is definitely a hot take.
Okay.
But the first one, not a hot take, Time Cop.
Time Cop?
Jean-Claude Van Damme.
So first of all the Jean-Claude Van Damme movies blend together for me.
Exactly.
But I'm in for it. Okay. I remember Bloodsport. Bloodsport, I specifically recall. Time Cop, I don't think I recall so much. What's the premise of Time Cop?
So the JCVD is a cop, and time travel is possible. And the idea was that there's a police force of people, a time police force. And these guys basically enforce the idea that, some people obviously will go back in time to maybe make millions or do stock trading and do whatever, right? And so time cops,
like Back to the Future. They'd be in like Back to the Future.
They'd be like Biff in Back to the Future. Or not Biff, but yeah. So the idea is like they go after people who've gone back in time.
No way.
To catch them and bring them back to the present to put them in jail. Right? And the concept back then was if you see yourself in the past, you can't touch yourself because it's, two people of the same that are the same cannot occupy the same space and time.
Oh,
and
it's
like
it's absolutely Back to the Future. I am totally in for this.
So there's some crazy effects there.
Time Cop, who else is in it?
I gotta think. No one that I remember. I just remember Jean-Claude Van Damme.
This reminds me of that Justin Timberlake movie, which I think is called
In Time?
Out of Time, right?
Yeah.
That was,
it's where you could buy time and live forever if you had enough money, right?
Yes. I don't remember how that... And you know who else was in that? Cillian Murphy. Wow, what a weird cast, huh?
Yeah, that's weird.
Okay, so you've got... So that's your hot take. What's your other take?
No, that's my normal take. I don't think that's a hot take.
That's a normal take. What's a hot take?
This is gonna wrinkle a lot of feathers.
My feathers?
Not your feathers, but I think society's feathers.
Society's feathers.
Are you ready for this?
Yes.
Episode 7, 8, 9 of Star Wars remake.
You're right.
I told you. Total wrinkling.
Right.
Some people are going to hate me for it. Some people are going to applaud me for it.
Yeah. But when you say
the same characters, I have no problem.
When you say remake, do you mean like, for example, A Star Is Born, right? A Star Is Born was originally with Barbra Streisand, right? And then they remade it.
Before that, there was one more.
Yeah, with one more, and then Barbra Streisand, and then Lady Gaga. Are you saying remake it again, or are you saying like you just want to wipe it out and recreate it?
So, personally speaking, and this is where the hot take really happens, is wipe out and restart.
Yeah.
Have the same actors. I have no problem.
Yeah.
But I think conceptually as a story in terms of writing, bring Jon Favreau in. Bring, if you want J.J. Abrams to direct, that's fine, but I don't want him writing.
No more lens flares.
No more lens flares. Bring Filoni in. Bring hardcore Star Wars geeks in to do it.
Yeah.
I think, for example, J.J. Abrams did a very good job with Star Trek, the reboots of the Star Trek series. Yeah. But if you ask me, are they Star Trek? I don't think they're Star Trek.
If someone were negotiating with you, would you agree that 7 can stay, 8 and 9 need to be remade?
Yeah, I mean, okay. If that's the best deal I can get, then yes. 7 was very nostalgic. It was
I think 7 was such a bridge film, let's call it, that I think it would be so difficult if we had a blank canvas to come up with something and say that it's satisfied all of the stakeholders that needed to be satisfied by it while advancing the story. I think 7 had one of the hardest jobs ever to create 7. I think 7 was okay. In terms of just the bridge, say, look, this is an old story. We're extending it now. 7 is okay. 8 and 9 is especially, 8 and 9 is where I think it went off the rails. But I'm okay with 7. I'm okay with 7, to be honest. I kind of like 7. You and I saw 7 together.
7 is like, yes.
We both cried. How can we say we want to remake a movie that made us cry?
Let's put it this way. I put that in context of it being a trilogy.
Yeah.
Right? And I say that in the sense that 7 was like a tepid bath, which is easy to step into.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because everyone always wants to dip their toes first.
Yeah.
So it was easy to step into. You're right. It didn't rankle any feathers, but it didn't go anywhere new. It was a retread of another Death Star, right? Just on a much bigger scale, but it was effectively a very similar movie. But okay, I take your point.
And it also introduced new characters that almost immediately we kind of accepted. Daisy Ridley. I mean, to be honest, we didn't know anything about her. And we accepted her right away.
Yeah, I would tweak a few things about 7. Let's put it that way. I would definitely tweak a few things about 7.
Yeah.
But I think 8 and 9 especially. Look, I will admit, when I first stepped out of the theater having watched 8, I thought it was great, only because I'm a fan of subverting expectations. But then the more I sat down, the more I thought about it. It was like a meal of, it was like sitting down after eating Chipotle or after eating Taco Bell. immediate satisfaction, but then 30 minutes later, you're just like, oh, I regret that.
The one thing I like about 8 is there are, I think, 2 of the coolest 3 scenes that I've ever experienced. And the 2 coolest scenes are, and the rest of the movie, I think, has a lot of problems. The first scene was where Laura Dern, a purple-haired, very long-necked Laura Dern.
Yeah, incredibly so in this movie, right?
Or she somehow turned into a triangle, turns the ship around and went into warp speed to destroy the other ship, which, first of all, I'm not sure if that's possible. We've never seen that before. But I thought the visual of that
Stunning.
And the sound, I remember in the cinema, the sound of that was wow.
Yeah.
Absolutely wow. The second scene was on this planet, which had the red salt, which you thought was snow originally, right?
Oh, that's right.
It was white, and then when you kind of kicked up the dust, it turned into be red salt. I thought visually that was also like iconic. I thought those two visuals were really very, very memorable. In terms of the movie, though, I didn't like too many things about the movie, including, as you know, the inclusion of Princess Leia, who somehow has powers hitherto not known about, and so on and so forth. That's my problem with that.
Yeah, I think.
But I like your hot take. I like your hot take.
It is, and it is assuredly going to piss off a lot of people, right? But I think that
I don't think so.
and for a multitude of reasons.
I don't think so. I don't think any of the hardcore, not even hardcore. That's not the right way to say it. I don't think any of the folks who've grown up with Star Wars would find it objectionable to redo 8 and 9. I think globally everyone is a little bit disappointed by 8 and 9. Definitely a tough job, to make those, but I don't think there's anyone who's happy. And what you've previously done on other episodes is you've talked about Star Wars fans as being kind of the casual fan, who just knows Star Wars because of Disney. You've talked about kind of like the hardcore Star Wars fans, people like yourself who have read the books and, know the canon. And then there's kind of the folks who have grown up with Star Wars, know the characters, have like an idea of what it should be. And I don't think any of those three groups find 8 and 9 to be untouchable.
Yeah, no. When I say it's going to rankle feathers, I think it's really going to rankle feathers of those quote-unquote outsiders. The ones who are maybe not so deeply steeped in the lore, but will attack that statement or that concept of remaking it with the argument or the guise of, oh, well, that's a sexist thing to say. You're just, you just want it to be a dude that's doing all that. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of different elements to that, right? Which is very complicated. Right. And to be frank, very political, which is not what I'm saying. I'm just saying as a story, as a Star Wars aficionado, there's a lot of problems with what they did. Conceptually, I get what they were trying to do.
Yeah.
But, any movie that says, or any story that says, but somehow Palpatine returned, that is not good writing in any way, shape, or form.
I agree.
You know what I mean? So I think I think that some people would be wholeheartedly behind me on that, but I think the larger community...
I'm behind you, Pete. Our listeners are behind you. Please, everyone, send Pete words of encouragement. He seems to be really afraid for the backlash that he's going to generate for himself here.
Indeed. So that's my hot take remake.
But Pete, given how many sequels we've seen, right? MCU, which is a whole universe. Star Wars, which has spin-off shows and one-off movies. Are you surprised that there's not more movies that haven't... I mean, we see sequels for Ghostbusters. Unnecessary. We see them for Matrix. 20 years after the fact. There's so many
totally
things.
Unnecessary, yeah.
I mean, you and I were talking about this. If we just take Angelina Jolie, for example. right? And just pull her out. She's had so many good action movies that haven't had a sequel. Wanted. So cool. Salt. I thought that's an easy one for sure. What about even Mr. and Mrs. Smith? All those, I think, could easily qualify for sequels. And I'm not sure whether it's because of her contractual demands or just a lack of appetite. I thought all three of those would be easy targets for a sequel.
Yeah, theoretically. I mean, so at the end of Wanted, I think she dies. So could have been a
That's
prequel.
true. Yeah.
Could have been a prequel. Another one is Gone in 60 Seconds.
Gone in 60 Seconds. Yes.
I like it for two reasons. Or
Nick Cage. I know why.
Well,
Nicolas Cage is in it. Nicolas Cage is in it. Okay.
That's obviously reason number one.
Yes.
But number two is because who doesn't like a good heist movie that's a bit stylish? You know? I mean, don't get me wrong. Like,
with automobiles.
Exactly, right?
I mean, if they could make 9 Fast and Furious. They could definitely make another Gone in 60 Seconds.
Like, I like heist movies in general. I think it's a niche genre, but I think a good heist movie is akin to a really good mystery movie, you know, which is to say, we know something's happening. We know these guys are planning something, but then at the end they subvert it or they twist it somehow. It's so good. I mean, that's one of the reasons I love the Ocean's 11 movies is you think they're getting caught, but really they've what's that word? You know, when you do a
switcheroo,
twist, not
plot
just a
twist.
switcheroo, not even that. What's that? You know, when you turn traitor against someone, but it's really a triple something. I can't remember. It'll come to me.
I'm sure there's a word for it, but yes.
Yeah. So it's.
But
it's like being a double agent and then a triple agent, right?
Yeah,
that's what it is. Which is to say, you know, there's a plot twist, and even that plot twist has a plot twist, right?
It's like Inception.
Kind of like Inception in that sense, right? So I really like
the dream within a dream, the dream within a dream, the plot twist within the plot twist.
Yeah.
But okay, what if this is our hot take then? What if, you know, the heist movie is an untapped genre for sequels? That you see a heist and it's just one episode and everything's got to wrap up by the 120th minute. What if there's kind of like Oceans 10, 11, and 12? What if there's kind of like an ongoing heist and every movie or every different sequel advances, you know, that plot twist a little bit and it's kind of a series along those lines? Is this like an untapped genre?
A, definitely untapped, and B, you know what movie could possibly do that if they really dig deep and think about it? Red Notice. Because it's a heist.
Did it hurt you to say that? Did you have to just swallow your pride?
I did.
And take a deep breath and meditate for a moment before you suggested that.
Think about it, right?
You mentioned it as well.
Cleopatra's eggs, right?
Yeah,
these MacGuffins.
Mm-hmm.
But what if they're not MacGuffins? What if that, you know, they're able to steal 3 more other devices and, you know, they can like Voltron combine these stolen objects into one super stolen object that has the key for something that's even crazier, like I don't know. Look, I'm obviously talking out of my butt, but you know what I mean? Like that's theoretically possible.
So
but a multi-story
when we discussed that, no, but when we discussed Red Notice, you mentioned it. You heard it here first. That you said, look, because a lady is called Bishop, right? Gal Gadot is called Bishop, right? And you said you think that she's part of a syndicate, and everyone's named after the chessboard, right? It's led by the king and queen, and there's the pawns, the rooks, the blah blah blah.
Exactly.
And you called it first. And I agree, that could be, especially given Red Notice and Netflix and so forth, that absolutely could be a heist movie that does have a sequel to it. But I think that's a good genre as well, because everyone likes a good plot twist, and a good plot twist at the end of a movie also creates, you know, a lot of enthusiasm for the next installment. Can I tell you what I've seen recently? You know, I have sisters. And my sisters love the Hallmark channel because Hallmark has all these, especially around Christmas and holiday time.
Yeah.
And especially around Valentine's Day, which is called Lovey-wary in the Hallmark speak. They had something super interesting, and I'm forced to watch a lot of these in the background, but they had something super interesting which caught my attention. They had something called The Veil, where 3 friends chip in to buy this beautiful old lace wedding veil. And they find that it has kind of like these, not magical powers, but it's got like these good vibes attached to it. And whoever is responsible for holding on to it is, not magically, but, falls in love with their Prince Charming, yeah? And they're making 3 different episodes based on this one idea called The Veil. The Veil 1, Veil 2, Veil 3, where each of the 3 friends, who's for some circumstance or another is responsible for holding on or transporting the veil, meets their Prince Charming while this happens. And I thought that's a very clever way in the Hallmark romance genre, to create some continuity between cast and characters and storyline and so forth, right? So even Hallmark has started to do this. There's no reason this could not be extended to a heist movie.
I agree. I think so. It's funny. I agree in principle, but I also it's a little bit. There's a little bit of cognitive dissonance because half of me is against the idea of a franchise, right? In the sense that we're now seeing Hollywood over the last 2 decades has shifted towards a franchise model, which is how do we make a movie that we can make a sequel out of, a threequel out of, and spin-offs, because it's the most profitable way, right? And clearly, Marvel has pioneered that, or at least been the best at it, because their entire cinematic history is all about spin-offs and franchises, right? So in that sense, I am not a fan of franchises because I think it really curtails the ability to tell good stories, or at least one-off good stories. But on the other hand, I really like a good heist.
I like a good heist as well.
A good heist
and you know what? All the heist movies that you and I love, whether it's Heat, whether it's... What's the one with... the guy who played the Hulk. Let's see. Ed Norton.
Not The Prestige. The other one.
Yes. You remember this one?
It was the one with Paul Giamatti plays the cop.
Yes. So good, right?
It was also very good.
Listeners, please write us in and remind us what movie I'm even talking about. But all these heist movies, and some of them are so good. Is it The Illusionist?
It is The Illusionist.
All right. So The Illusionist, all these heist movies are so good, but they're always a little bit slow to develop. They've got to have character development at the beginning, and then in the middle they get to the meat, and then the end is usually very, very, very rushed. It's like in the last 10 minutes, kind of everything happens together. They're going to steal the thing, and there's a switch and a double switch in the backpack, and it's hidden or put down the sewer or something. I think that if you'd have a 3-part heist movie, you could really tease out all the different characters and actors and a little more detail in terms of all the different double crosses, that are trying to take place.
Yeah, I think so again, conceptually, I love it, but practically speaking, the other thing is how long do you want to wait before there's a payoff? Right? If you're talking about 3 movies, for example, that's 3 years or 3 different summers or 3 different, eras of watching a movie for a payoff, which, don't get me wrong, could be a great payoff, but is it worth waiting 3 years for that payoff?
Do you think that there needs to be a different way that they do sequels? I mean, because now sequels, as you mentioned, that's a very good point, which is Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, you're kind of waiting 9 months, 12 months, maybe 15 months for the next one. All these are kind of like filmed at the same time. Do you think they should just film one and say, look, we're going to release it on spring, summer, and holiday season in the winter, and just do it all in 1 year?
So
how's that idea I just made up?
I love it as a fan of movies.
Yeah. Practically, it's difficult, probably.
Practically, not just difficult, but I think also like, again, you want to, your stockholders would be so pissed off, right? Because you want to maximize revenue from movie sales, then streaming, then DVDs and merchandising before you really go into your next movie. I think it would be, I think it would be foolhardy, for example, if you were to film all 3 Spider-Man movie over the course of 2 years and then release Spider-Man 1 in February, Spider-Man 2 in July, and Spider-Man 3 in December.
Is that really the case? Because would it not force everybody to kind of see them quickly or to rent them quickly and just, or you think that people are just going to be too compressed on time and they don't have the bandwidth to kind of
I think
consume that much content?
Really doing too much in 1 year for one character. You risk saying, I am so tired of Spider-Man. I just saw him, save the Empire State Building from blowing up. I don't need to see him do anything else for the rest of the year. That's my feeling. I don't know, but that's my feeling. Where I think that adds more value is not in independent movies, but in movies, for example, like Lord of the Rings, where you have one story told over 3, and that took 3 years, 4 years for it to come out over the course of each movie. As a fan of movies, I wouldn't have had any problem if they released all 3 movies within a year.
Those are long movies.
But those are, again, there you go. Therein lies the rub. For a heist movie, do you want to wait 9 hours to see a payoff?
Yeah.
Or, assuming each movie is 3 hours. So let's say 5 hours for a payoff. Or do you want to just watch a 1.5 hour romp which has the payoff then and there?
So when is the second installment of Dune coming out?
So they haven't even started filming it.
So that strikes me as a very long time to wait for the sequel. And the first Dune was I loved it. I mean, I love the original, but it was a little bit slow. But I'm not dying to find out what happens in the sequel to Dune, right? Is this too slow to come out?
It's too slow, but that's on Warner. That's not on Denis Villeneuve. That's not on the actors. That's on Warner Brothers, right? Because Warner Brothers, they weren't sure if the movie was going to be profitable. They weren't sure if the critics were going to like the movie. So Warner Brothers only greenlit the first movie, and then they said that we'll make the second only if the first does well. So we're lucky that it did well enough to justify having the second greenlit. But there was a possibility that Warner Brothers just said, we're not going to make the sequel. And then we would have been stuck with half a movie, which would have been even worse.
Okay. What about Indiana Jones? What's happening in Indiana Jones? There's a sequel, there's a remake. Where is this going?
I think Indy 5 is being made now. I don't know anything about it. I don't know if it's a remake. I don't think it's a remake. I think it's just a sequel.
Can you remind me of what we've got for Indiana Jones chronology? We've got Indiana Jones. What's the first one? Temple of
the
Doom?
Lost Ark.
Is that the first one?
No, the Lost Ark is the first one.
Raiders of the Lost Ark is the first one.
Raiders of the Lost Ark is the first. Then you have Temple of Doom. And then you have...
Crystal Skull?
No, Crystal Skull was 4. What was
Last Crusade. Last Crusade.
Last Crusade was the third movie. And then Crystal Skull with Shia LaBeouf. And then Indy 5.
But what's Indy 5? Who's is it? It's not Harrison Ford, right?
It is Harrison Ford.
Was he in Crystal Skull?
He was in Crystal Skull.
I don't remember. I don't think I saw Crystal Skull.
You lucked out.
Did you? Was it good?
I did not enjoy it. I thought it was fine. I thought it had many elements of an Indiana Jones movie, but I wasn't a huge fan of it. Crystal Skull came out in a time where Shia LaBeouf was really killing it in Hollywood in terms of people loving him.
Transformers, yeah.
And it was rumored that if Crystal Skull did well, they wanted to transition Harrison Ford as leading Indiana Jones to Shia LaBeouf leading Indiana Jones. That was the idea. I think that was the idea. The concept was that, hey, if everyone loves Shia LaBeouf, he's killing it, let's put him into Crystal Skull, and then we can let Harrison Ford go the same way as Sean Connery in The Last Crusade, and then we can continue the franchise with Shia LaBeouf. But two things happened. One, the movie was not...
Shia's fallen out of favor in Hollywood.
Exactly.
Is that right?
That's the second thing. He's absolutely lost his plot, and the movie didn't do well. So.
Yeah. Okay. What about A-Team? You have any interest in an A-Team? I mean,
like
when you and I grew up, A-Team on television was like so important to watch, right?
It was a must-watch.
It was a must-see show. Then they did a movie, and I thought the movie was not good. And then they did a sequel to the movie, right? This was a Bradley Cooper, right? Did they do one or two A-Teams?
Just one. They just did the one that was with Liam Neeson as Hannibal, Bradley Cooper as the face, that boxer / UFC fighter / wrestler as BA, and I can't remember the guy's name as Mad Dog.
Jessica Biel was also in it.
Yep.
Liam Neeson. I can't remember who was Murdoch, but someone was Murdoch.
Yeah.
You're right. Rampage Jackson was B.A. Baracus.
Yeah.
But then they stopped, right? They only did the one.
But they stopped. So I liked it. I actually thought it was very good. Or not good, but it was very much in line with...
Patrick Wilson was in that. Patrick Wilson was in that.
He plays the CIA bad guy.
Oh.
Right. He plays
See,
the bad guy.
Patrick Wilson is always in these shows as a very important supporting actor. I wouldn't mind seeing. I wouldn't have mind seeing a better A-Team. I thought the one that they made was not amazing. I wouldn't have mind seeing a better one, actually.
Yeah, I think in terms of action, in terms of what they were trying to do, it was maybe a little on the nose compared to the TV show.
Yeah.
But in terms of whether I enjoyed it, certainly I could have that on in the background. I would be very happy with that.
Yeah, I think so as well. What other TV shows have been made into movies? Like the 80s was like known for...
Starsky and Hutch?
Starsky and Hutch. There was no Knight Rider, was there? They never made Knight Rider.
Not as a movie, but they remade the show. But they remade the show. Yeah.
And there was like all these like Airwolf and Seahawk movies or TV shows. I don't think they remade any of those into
they did not.
Either.
Stargate, obviously, movie that became a TV series.
Mm-hmm.
But that's it, I think.
I think we need a separate episode where we talk about TV shows that have been made into movies or that should be made
into movies. That I agree.
Right?
I think that'll be a good one too.
Because I feel like TV shows have been like such an inspiration, right? But I feel like there's a lot of untapped content, especially in some of those like 80s and 90s like kind of action shows. That they could take them and they could spice them up a little bit if they were on the big screen.
Right.
Even Star Trek started as a television show, right?
It was. That's right.
Battlestar Galactica started as a television show.
That's right.
All right, that's our next episode. Prequels, sequels, television shows that should or should not be made into full feature-length movies, right?
Perfect. So we can discuss that alongside, I think next week we're also going to talk about Peacemaker. We can talk about
I love Peacemaker.
You and I are caught up.
Love it.
You and I are caught up through the penultimate episode. The final episode comes out next week.
Correct.
And we will watch it and we will discuss that immediately thereafter.
What about, there's a few other things we should also discuss, whether or not we should discuss. The King's Man, the third in the Kingsman series. Any interest in seeing or discussing this?
I've seen it. Not particularly keen on discussing it unless the viewers have so. If you want my immediate rating right now, I would say it's mooch at best.
Yeah, I agree. What about House of Gucci? I don't think you've seen this.
I have not seen this, and I have no interest in seeing it, so for me, it is an ignore.
What about the Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg movie. What is it called?
Uncharted.
Yes, Uncharted.
To be determined. I will want to see that. So I'll give you my rating after.
I think I want to see that. That's out in cinemas now, right?
It hasn't hit the cinemas here yet. Or if it has, it's come out either just this weekend or it's coming out in the next few weekends.
Okay. So we have to see that. And then television side, is there anything else new apart from Peacemaker that we need to see? 1883, the prequel to Yellowstone. What do we say about 1883?
We can talk about it if you want. I've seen a few episodes, not my bag at the moment. Yeah. But that's, to be fair, that's also how I felt about Yellowstone when I saw it first.
Yeah.
It took me 4 or 5 episodes to really get into it.
And what about season 6 of Billions?
I'm watching it now, and I must say I am enjoying it.
I'm behind on you because I need to watch season 5.
Oh,
so yeah. maybe I can catch up on season 5. We'll finish season 6, and then we'll do a breakdown on season 6.
Yep. Yeah.
I think that deserves it.
We can definitely do that.
Done and done. Okay, Pete. We've got our work cut out for us in the coming week.
Perfect, Ethan. And as always, if you guys have any shows that you would like to hear about, or if you'd have any shows or movies that you think we can do a better job of redoing,
or if you want to argue with Pete's hot take about episodes 7, 8, and 9, although I think everyone agrees with you on that. Please.
We're always here to listen.
We're always here to listen and give our hot takes. All right. Thanks, everyone. And thank you, Pete. Have a great week, everyone.
Thank you, Ethan. Have a good one.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Films and Stuff. If you haven't already, please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are downloaded. Films and Stuff. There is no substitute.